Did you know Oblivion boasts 11 hidden quests that can be completed for unique rewards? However, as an extra challenge, they possess no journal entries to guide the player, ranging from an in-depth romance, questionable illegal cargo in Anvil, all the way to a hidden horror that ties back to Morrowind. Before we explore the full story of these epic quests, there are, though, a handful of less involved hidden quests worth a mention, such as an attack on Fort Sutch, where we help a group of soldiers close a large Oblivion Gate, the repeatable quest of hunting Black Bow Bandits at the end of Mazoga the Orc's questline, or ridding Battlehorn Castle of unwanted tenants. As we progress, the quests become more involved, such as the easily missed but powerful quest Pilgrimage of the Divines to receive its reward, a hefty greater power of Pilgrim's Grace, which imparts fortify all attributes by 10 points for 300 seconds. Unlike the Knights of the Nine pilgrimage, to obtain this power, you must visit at least one of the Divine's way shrines with 0 infamy the entire time. The next hidden quest is encountered during another quest, Lifting the Veil, traversing the Serpent's Trail to reach Pale Pass and the ruined fort. Here you'll find a chest revealing a crumpled note from an unlucky thief, informing you he's hidden a magical ring in a chest nearby. Using the key he has provided, we hunt down all 4 containers. The first 3 hold keys to the next, while the final container rewards you with the promised Circlet of Omnipotence. Worth 3,000 septims, it grants only a meager fortify agility, endurance, speed, strength, and willpower 3 points. There's also the Unbeaten Path. Encountered in the eastern side of Fort Coldcorn lies a secret treasure, though it diminishes in power the earlier you seek it out. To locate said treasure, we begin behind a big wall at the back of the fort, where a ledge jump leads to a chest containing random loot, including a 10% chance of enchanted jewelry, 5% chance of an enchanted weapon, and a key of hidden wealth and a strange note reading, "The sword leads the way. Half a mile, it's just past the big rock on the right." Beside the chest, you'll find a fine steel longsword pointing the way. Travelling half a mile, as promised in the sword's direction, we can spot a large rock on our right, protruding from a slope. Near this rock, virtually beneath it, between a smaller rock and the larger one, lies another chest, locked and accessible only with the key of hidden wealth. Inside awaits our reward, finding a steel dagger and mysterious note entitled Note of Bounty that reads, "Blessed are those who explore the unbeaten path." Not seeing the blessing, but rather a fool's errand some sap died for, there is a hidden catch in the quest, as the dagger is high quality for your level. However, the dagger spawns to the level at the time that you first enter the vicinity of Fort Coldcorn. The wiki tells us the leveled dagger has exceptional quality, and the chance of enchantment goes up to 50% at level 9 or above. With catch in mind, perhaps this seems more of a gamble, and the treasure hunt, rewarding those who dared to stray from well-trodden trails, may be the developers not being afraid to lead the player astray in their own cheeky way. Now to the meatier questlines that are worthy of an in-depth exploration. This is the story of Bitneld and Emfrid's secret romance, which I'm willing to bet 99% of players have missed, as it is a hidden quest without a journal entry taking place in Coral during the events of Oblivion. When first entering the western city's walls, we find ourselves gravitating towards an inn to rest a spell, with the official guide to Coral on hand, written by the famously scathing author Alessia Otis, which guides us in our decisions, stating, "There are only 2 places where you may purchase food and lodging. One is proper and clean, frequented by decent citizens. The other is rude and dirty and a meeting place for drunkards, thieves, and orcs. The one is run by a well-dressed, dignified, and proper matron. The other is run by a careless young woman. The one is called the Oak and Crozier. The other is the Grey Mare. And I'm sure you know which one to visit if you want a clean and safe bed. Opting for the former, we head inside the Oak and Crozier to see, standing by the far wall, another author of some repute. Indeed, also featured in the same guide under the Notable Citizens section is fellow Imperial author Casta Scribonia. Though Alessia's Guide to Coral again warns, she is a well-educated and well-travelled woman, but she writes books which I cannot recommend, for they're full of romance and gossip and other offensive and wasteful indulgences, and the heroes do not present to our children the proper models of virtue, duty, honour, and reverence that all followers of the Nine Divines must love and hold in our hearts. This time, opting to go against our guide's wishes, we approach the romance author who greets.
Hello, I'm Casta Scribonia, the writer, author of Woman Gone Wild.
When asked about Coral, Casta gazes off into the distance. Her eyes glaze over, and she starts to muse openly to herself rather than answer our question directly.
Who is the fairest of them all, other than myself? The proprietor of the Grey Mare is lovely. She and the guard captain would be a nice couple. Be seeing you.
Leaving the Imperial savant to swirl her brandy and fancifully play matchmaker in her head, we depart the Oak and Crozier. Speaking to Casta, we have inadvertently embarked on a new hidden quest, and following our only lead up past the Grey Mare, in which Emfrid is reported to work, making our way northeast, ascending the cobble path towards Coral's castle. Risking being reprimanded or worse, we slip into the guard's barracks and find past the off-duty sentries the Nord guard captain Bittneld, loitering in his private quarters. Approaching him, he greets.
Good to see you. You've got some nimble fingers. What have you been getting into?
How do you do? I'm Bittneld, the Curse Bringer, captain of the Coral Guard. What can I do for you?
Seeming open enough to some light banter, we asked the captain what he thinks of Coral, and his unprompted thoughts on the local females spill forth.
There are a lot of fine-looking women in Coral, but they're all kind of snooty and not very nice.
We turn to leave the spurned captain, pondering if the ladies of Coral are predisposed to snootiness as reported, or perhaps Bittneld may be lacking something that the local ladies desire.
Good day.
Outside of a more welcoming surname to bear. After which, we step back into the night air, heading south down the path, following the sounds of raucous drinking emanating from the mare. Bracing ourselves for a rowdy welcome, we find the mare is actually surprisingly tame, although Emfrid's local patrons flank her on either side to add some muscle, as if to ward off an unwanted foreign interloper in their local watering hole. The Nord woman seems friendly enough, greeting.
What is it? An honor to serve you. I'm Emfrid, owner and publican of the Grey Mare, at your service. A room? Or food? Whatever you wish.
With Cupid's arrow finding its quarry, we cut to the chase and query, what do you think of that guard captain? We heard he's single.
Bittneld, captain of the castle guard? He seems like such a nice fellow. Too bad I don't see him in here very much.
Ironically, if we ask Emfrid about Casta, seeing if this was just a fantasy the author had conjured, she interjects.
I read one of Casta Scribonia's books not long ago. Terrible stuff if you ask me, but some folks seem to like it. Bye.
A brutal review to be sure, however, we have learned that Emfrid is somewhat open to the company of her fellow Nord. However, he does not frequent the bar. Well, unless we get involved. And so we trudge back up the path to the barracks, determined to see our matchmaking skills come to fruition. Seeing our arrival in his quarters once more,
met.
a surprised Bittneld greets.
You look like a bright one. Yes?
We then direct our questioning about Coral and its lovely lasses once more, but he firmly reiterates.
Oh, there are a lot of fine-looking women in Coral, but they're all kind of snooty.
We empathetically play along, asking, "Oh, is that so? It's a shame, really."
Well, that's just my opinion.
Moving in for the kill, we casually lean over and question, "Hey Bittneld, you know who's single and seems interested? That lovely lass Emfrid. Not snotty at all, I mean, she sleeps behind the bar."
Emfrid? She owns the Grey Mare, right? I go to the Oak and Crozier. I'm a captain, you see, and the Oak and Crozier serves a better class of people. Listen to me. I sure sound like a snob. Snooty, in fact, and not very nice. Thanks. That's a very good suggestion. I think I'll stop by the Grey Mare and perhaps pay my respects to this Emfrid woman.
With the guard captain's lower lip puffed up into something resembling a giddy smile, we can only hope Emfrid is enticed by his newfound charm and sweaty headband.
Take care.
We sincerely hope he will wash before making his daring approach. Indeed, when we arrive back at the mare sometime later, we find the captain has beat us there, still grinning like an idiot standing next to the Nord beauty behind the bar.
How do you do?
The bread's hot and fresh with a nice crust and butter and honey. Just like you like it.
Good.
That's fine news. Be seeing you. It's my pleasure. Please continue.
Talking to Emfrid, she coyly confirms our suspicions.
Did you say something to Bittneld? That was very sweet of you. Now he stops by here every day. Be seeing you.
Indeed, there is no reward for this quest except the new lover's disposition will raise 20 and 30 points respectively, and Bittneld will give up his snooty life of looking down on the mare, returning every day at 6 p.m. to canoodle with Emfrid, in which they both unlock dialogue, which is admittedly lovely to eavesdrop on.
Greetings, daughter of Skyrim.
I've put aside a little mead for you. I know you like it.
Oh, you shouldn't have. That's very kind of you.
Hello.
Your shield arm looks strong. What can I do for you? You have to admit, this is a good place to live. Friendly folks, I think.
Heading back to our original quote-unquote quest giver, Caster, for a final time, the author knowingly questions.
Yes, I hear that Emfrid and Captain Bittneld are spending a lot of time together. You wouldn't have anything to do with that, would you?
This is the gruesome tale of the hidden horror of Dive Rock, a hideously grim continuation of the Mead Hall Massacre questline involving a hapless group of Nords during the events of Morrowind's Blood Moon DLC. To begin the quest, as it is one of 11 hidden quests in Oblivion with no journal entries or directions, we'll use some old-fashioned detective work to piece together the clues peppered throughout the Vallis Mountains region for those brave enough to venture into the unforgiving cold. When visiting the city of Cheydinhall, we begin to hear unsettling whispers of a hidden horror present at Dive Rock in the Vallis Mountains. Also, the fandom page claims, I could neither find hide nor hair of this rumour, to be honest, although if you have any evidence to the contrary, let me know. Instead, we shall follow my own path of discovery, as during the video exposing Oblivion's secret skooma den, we were led first to Walker Camp just north of Cheydinhall. There, Kamona Tong thugs reside, collecting skooma from the nearby Aurum gang at Cheydinhall, and deposit it weekly in a hollowed-out rock in King's Crest Cavern, presumably to be collected for distribution in their homeland of Morrowind at a later date, though the end of the quest was unfortunately cut. However, we find northeast of this King's Crest Cavern, at the foot of the steep slopes of the Dural and Vallis Mountains, an unmarked road connecting the camp with Cheydinhall to the south. It's there we find a single Nord in what's called Aaron's camp, and his name is Torben, as he sits by his tent and waits. And this is where a first dark clue begins. See, Morrowind fans may remember that name, Erin. Erin being a female Bosma who was found in the Anders Trade House in Margan.
If I can help, I will, but don't take too much time.
She's the master trainer of the light armor skill and a major trainer in sneak and acrobatics. And she must be an acrobat of some repute, as now, during the events of Oblivion, once our acrobatic skill is 70 or higher, we can speak with either trainer Svara in Leowyn.
I'm Sarava. I'm an advanced trainer in acrobatics. Did I mention I hate dogs? So keep your dogs away from me, unless they want some advanced lessons in plunging from great heights. I can't teach you anything you don't already know. Erin could, though. She's a brilliant acrobat. Last I heard, she'd set up camp in the mountains, somewhere in the northeast corner of the province. You should look for her there.
Or Ganradel in the city of Cheydinhall.
Ganradel. I train dogs. And people. Prefer dogs. People. I teach them advanced acrobatics. Up and jump. Dogs. I teach them to bite people. If you require further training, you might consider venturing into the mountains in the north of Cyrodiil. Erin's camp, specifically. Erin's a very gifted acrobat and could teach you anything you needed to know.
Curious that Erin is nowhere in sight.
Good evening.
More so, perhaps, that Torben has taken her stead to offer acrobatics training. The seated Nord, seeing our confusion, welcomes.
Hello there. Welcome to Erin's camp.
Questioning Torbern's word, we greet. Hello there. So, this is Erin's camp, I hear. But where's Erin?
Yeah, it's her camp. I don't know where she is, though. For that matter, I don't know who she is either. No one was here, so I thought I'd settle in.
I was actually guided by 2 trainers to Erin herself. Will she be back at any time?
You came all this way for training from Erin? You must be really disappointed that she's not here. Well, I haven't ever seen her, so I guess you're out of luck there. But if you want, I could train you. I'm pretty skilled myself. And I could always use the money. Be seeing you.
Seriously suspecting foul play, we begin to search the camp for Erin, waiting to happen across her remains, and oddly finding a vase with flowers in it in the nearby tent. Perhaps a tad feminine for a hardy Nord. Well, it's too early to judge. Regardless, we continue searching northwest, and it's only when gazing up at a jagged formation jutting out of the monumental mountain do we nearly trip over a corpse. However, this is no Bosmer acrobat at all, but instead a Breton man sprawled out in upper-class finery. Is this another victim of Tom the Butcher? Perhaps the rumours of Dive Rock are due to the Nord serial killer. Hurriedly searching this man's body for clues, finding a black and burgundy outfit, fur boots and helm to battle the frigid frost, plus pickaxe gripped in his palm. The pieces of the puzzle all begin to coalesce when we finally find a letter on his person that clarifies. Dearest Father, I know it's always been your dream to travel to Cyrodiil, to climb the lofty mountains and reach the peak known as Dive Rock, and gaze down at the full beauty of the Imperial Province. But I beseech you, be careful. We've both heard the tales of the creature known as the horror of Dive Rock. But in truth, what concerns me most is your lack of grace. Oh, Father, you know it pains me to say it, but you're clumsy. You always have been. You can't walk up a flight of stairs without crashing down to the bottom at least once. How can you possibly hope to scale a mountain range? Please, Father, I beg you, call off your expedition. I fear the worst. Your loving daughter, Fiona. And now we've learned the tragic truth. This poor Breton, Andre Labouche, died trying to climb this Dive Rock, succumbing not to a Nord, but a different tragedy altogether. Curiously, we never learn of Erin's fate. However, now, the mystery of Dive Rock has deepened, and we fear the only way we're going to learn the truth of the supposed horror is to scale the mountain ourselves. From Erin's camp, we scramble up the side of Dive Rock from the southeast, labouring against the near sheer verticality of much of the climb. Somehow, making it to the top of the slope in one piece, We're now able to ride via horseback and come across a small campfire on top of Dive Rock, still blazing, its inhabitants markedly absent. If we move past the tent for a moment and stand on the southernmost tip of Dive Rock, a message window will appear indicating that we've a rare view of the Imperial Province. We then see 3 location markers added to our map, trailing their way to Cheydinhal, being King's Crest Cavern, Phenarchus, and Quickwater Cave. Indeed, on a clear day, this site offers one of the most spectacular views in the province. Speaking of day, it seems the weather is about to turn and we must make shelter soon, and so we make our way back to the tent, spying 2 empty bedrolls, wondering, where are the inhabitants? Next to it, the small fire is still conspicuously burning bright, and we find a small sack of various supplies as well as ink and quill. As next to said sack is a journal, clearly of the departed campers that left in a haste, that reads, Agnar's Journal by Agnar the Unwavering, Entry 1. When I took on the role of Chieftain of Thirsk, when I accepted the beautiful Svenja Snowsong as my advisor, and then my bride, I never imagined how quickly my life would change. I went to the Isle of Solstheim for some much-needed rest, and found it in the mead-soaked halls of Thirsk. But when I met Svenja, my sweet Svenja, I became entangled in an epic story the likes of which I'd only read about in fables and children's tales. Svenja told me of the fateful night when a hideous creature known as the Uderfrykte attacked the mead hall, killing rampantly, leaving her the only survivor. The creature was slain by a champion, and Thirsk had its new chieftain. But it wasn't long before they moved on to some new challenge, some new adventure. And that's where I entered the tale. Svenja Snowsong, with her ice-blue eyes and flaxen hair, gained my love. Soon after, I became her husband and the Mead Hall's new chieftain. In truth, I'd never been happier. But Svenja, my dear wife, existed in quiet misery, constantly haunted by the memory of the Uderfrykte and the damage it had wrought on the Mead Hall and the people she had loved. Night after night, my dear woke up screaming, her face etched in horror, and a single word issuing from her lips, Uderfrykte, Uderfrykte, Uderfrykte. I feared for my wife's sanity and happiness, but it was she who found a solution to her problem. As a warrior, she told me she must confront her fear. She must defeat it. The Uderfrykte was dead, yes, but where did it come from? Was it unique? Would more of the creatures come and wreak havoc once again? Would I, her loving husband, be killed? And so she corresponded with explorers and researchers all across Tamriel, until she found the answers she had been looking for. The Uderfrykte was in fact not unique, but the offspring of an ancient Uderfrykte matron. In order to end the nightmares, in order to prevent any more destruction, we would need to hunt down and kill the Uderfrykte matron, no matter where or how. By Ysmir, we've been searching and searching and searching some more. But finally it came, the lucky break we'd been hoping for. The creature has been spotted by a shepherd in the remote highlands of Skyrim. We found his trail and tracked it for days, crossing the border into the Imperial Province. Here in the frigid mountains, we met with a local hunter who tried to warn us away from the area, citing an old legend about a deadly creature known as the Horror of Dive Rock, a monster credited with slaying 12 people and just as much cattle. Could this creature be the very Uderfrykte matron we seek? Perhaps, unlike its child on Solstheim, The Matron moves from location to location, and it's this mobility that has thus far prevented its killing or capture. We've made camp at Dive Rock, reportedly the highest natural observation point in all of Cyrodiil. From here, we can see for miles. We'll keep watch night and day. We're close, so very close. Svenja and I can feel it in our very bones. Indeed, Svenja has always been particularly in tune with such things, and is convinced the Uderfrykte matron is close. Svenja has grown tired of my constant writing, but this journal will serve as a record for our travels and defeat against the Uderfrykte. She's staring at me angrily, impatiently, right now as I write, but this entry is too important. Finally, on this third day of watching, we spotted it. The Uderfrykte matron. It is unlike anything we've ever lain eyes on. A giant, troll-like beast that seems to waver and shimmer in the cold. Like the feral form of winter itself. We're off now, to trudge down the mountain, weapons in hand, and give the horror of Dive Rock its due. Failure and horror. We engaged the monster with all the force we could muster, but it was a travesty beyond comprehension. Svenja, my beautiful Svenja, my dear wife, was killed instantly, consumed by the beast, nearly whole. And though it shames me to write these words, I could think of nothing more at the time than escape. I took flight, returning to our camp here on Dive Rock to collect my thoughts and nerve. I haven't much time. After this quick entry, I will march out and meet the Uderfrykte matron once more. It's sure to track me back to this campsite anyway, so our confrontation is inevitable. Can I even hope to defeat this monstrosity? One thing is certain. Svenja and I came hastily unprepared. My steel axe? Useless. My dear wife's frostworm bow, completely ineffective and swallowed whole still in Svenja's hand. The beast appears to be a creature of the cold, and is likely nearly completely resistant to it. I would attack with fire if I had any on hand, but there's no time. No time to travel to a mage's guild and procure an enchanted blade or hire the services of a sorcerer. My steel axe will have to do. And so I return to battle now, and hope beyond hope that I may slay the wretched monster that has brought so much grief to so many people. And if not, I take comfort in knowing I will soon rejoin my beautiful bride in the gilded halls of Sovngarde. If someone is reading this hastily written journal, I'm likely dead. And pray to Ysmir that you have had more luck against the creature than I. Agnar the Unwavering, chieftain of Thirsk.
Poor Agnar and Svenja. Gods only know what happened to the Nord chieftain, but we must try and help him if possible against this hideous creature. Although, according to the journal, the Uderfrykte matron is likely to track us to the camp. As the weather's visibility has turned against us, we're forced to take shelter until morning. Thankful for the fire and Labouche's furs, we settle in for the long night ahead. We soon learn this is a horrific mistake, as we're awakened by a whinny behind the tent, only to find the beast has hunted us down. The beast, completely invisible, kills our horse, and we are then woefully at the invisible horror's mercy. Instead of sleeping, we don our trusty iron armor and cast our mind back to what Agnar had urged about using fire to attack the frosty foe. Equipping our trusty fire-infused sword Goldbrand, we also stock up on flame arrows. and begin our trek over the mountainside to the southeast. Cresting the hill, we soon spy in the undulating hills below a queer shimmering in the pale moonlight. Approaching via stealth, we take aim with our bow and see a corpse of what must be poor Agnar being guarded by the translucent Matron. Loosing a single fire arrow, we find our mark true. Enraged, the Uderfrykte Matron barrels up the slope towards us, and we quickly about-face, trudging back to camp as fast as we can, weighed down by iron armor and ankle-deep in the snow, to face the horror atop Dive Rock's precarious perch. With a final groan, the beast plummets to its doom, sliding down into the nothingness below. Unfortunately, for honor's sake, we must follow, and realize where it must have landed. Torburn, still seated, must have no idea how close he is to the shimmering horror. Inspecting the flickering mass, we see the Uderfrykte somehow resembles a troll in size and stature. On its remains, we then find Svenja's promised frostworm bow, enchanted with a tidy 15 points of frost damage. We also find her furs and decomposed remains, as the troll had truly swallowed her whole. Leaving the beast's corpse to rot where it lay, we carry Svenja's leavings up the mountain, finding on the ridge Agnar's fresh body. Taking his fabled ineffectual war axe, we look over the Nord and feel it only right he's reunited with his love. And so, back atop Dive Rock, we lay out their remains to overlook Cyrodiil, hoping they'd found Sovngarde together, and that no one ever need fear the accursed Uderfrykte again. This is the story of Illegal Cargo, a hidden quest in Oblivion featuring pirates, booty, and outright stupidity, taking place in the seaside city of Anvil. Illegal Cargo is one of 11 hidden quests in Oblivion with no journal entry or even initial direction. To begin the quest, when visiting Anvil's finest drinking establishment, the Count's Arms Inn, we hear rumors circulating of thieves plaguing the town, causing the Fighters Guild and townsfolk no end of trouble.
A den of thieves, near Anvil. Like that's news. There must be a dozen of them.
These thieves, it seems, have become somewhat prolific as we see a flyer lying on the Count's Arms counter that reads, "Having trouble keeping the peace at home? Come to Morvaine's Peacemakers. One look at our maces, and your neighbours will ask before taking your sheep." A mace for sheep thieves?
Yes.
Now I've heard everything. Sauntering down to Morvaine's Peacemakers, west of the main gate, the Dark Elf smithy, Varel Morvaine, introduces.
Varel Morvaine. Been making weapons and arms here in Anvil for 30 years. People say I do good work, and I don't aim to argue with them.
We can then pick up the unique item as promised, called the Truncheon of Submission, boasting damage fatigue 50 points and a questionable restore health 20 points.
Another satisfied customer.
Now protected against any neighbour looking to steal our sheep, we return to the comfort of the inn to take a seat in the Eastern Reading Room to peruse a copy of the Guide to Anvil and find something more palatable about the city.
only to be shocked by the rather pointed rumours, as Imperial author Alessia Otis writes. The docks are rotten and in ill repair, and all manner of smells issue forth from the holds of ships and ramshackled warehouses. Shiftless persons gather here to bask in the sun, gossip, chatter, and plot how to beg or steal gold for wine and ale. Shocked at these accusations, as we'd first travelled to Anvil, hearing lovely rumours about the docks throughout Cyrodiil.
My favorite town, Anvil. Lovely old stone buildings, and the harbor at sunset is beautiful.
Making our way down to the harbour to see the truth of things for ourselves, we bump into none other than the dockmaster, Newheim the Portly, who greets.
I'm Newheim, Anvil Harbor Master. I'm responsible for all harbor traffic, docks, duties, and fees in Anvil Harbor.
Greetings, Newheim. Can you tell me what kind of traffic makes its way down here? I'd actually read a rather, distasteful article by Alessia Otis about a formidable smell and some ne'er-do-wells.
Traffic through Anvil Harbor comes mostly in exotic, high-profit goods, easy to transport by road or Mages Guild couriers to eastern markets. Goodbye.
Well, that all sounds above board. However, making our way down the docks, we begin to catch the rumoured whiff of a pungent odour emanating from the hold of the ship, the Sea Tub Clarabella, a ship which no one in Anvil mentions in-game or any conversation. Pausing for a moment, we swear we can hear a faint sound coming from the hold. As we do so, a wood elf waltzes past us and aboard the ship. The Bosmer's name is Anguilon. We warily approach, and he warns.
I don't know you. You don't know me. Everybody's happy.
Sorry, I thought I heard something coming from the hold. Well, I definitely smelled something out here.
It's a big town. Hell, it's a big county. You stick to your part, I stick to mine, all right? Stop talking. Enough.
Anguilon, clearly a pirate, pacing the deck, has us realise that perhaps the harbour master, Newheim's, blind eye may be for sale when it comes to illicit harbour goods. And perhaps there's something to Alessia Otis's scathing review of the docks. Deciding that we want to investigate more and break into the hard lock into the upper deck of the Sea Tub Clarabella. Entering via the captain's quarters, we open the door and are immediately assaulted by the ship's captain, Bazone Patniam.
You there! Stop where you are! Show me what you've got!
Felling the enraged Imperial, thanks to our mace, we then check over his body, not before looking at him for a moment and realising that we, in appearance, look very much the same. Interestingly, the captain has on his person a rugged pants and a shirt with suspenders, two rare clothing items in the game that boast 0 weight. Equipping the captain's effects in hopes we can create a disguise before happening upon the rest of the crew. We reach in the captain's breast pocket and find a poorly written note from one first mate Filch that reads, "Captain, I'm telling you, sir, we needs to be more careful. If Leowin City Watch comes snooping around again, we might have to pull anchor and get out of this good-for-nothing city. I ain't spending the rest of my days locked up in no jail for illegally transporting cattle. No, sir, I will not. All due respect, Captain, but the mates and me signed on for real pirate stuff. Murdering, looting, and ravaging. We ain't no damn sheepherds." Signed, First Mate Filch, and in brackets, pirate! So these pirates are responsible for cattle rustling. So much for the harbour master's claim that they're goods for the Mages Guild. Dressed in the captain's effects, we then head to the mid-deck and find a lone pirate, Argonian, standing watch. Drawing our truncheon, we bludgeon the poor Argonian back into their bunk.
Looking about the cabin, all we see is clutter, but hear a familiar sound emanating from the door in the northeast. Checking it, we find indeed there is cattle in the mid-deck. Sheep, just as we've been warned about by the several pamphlets around town. Looking to put an end to the sheep thieves, we then head to the southwest in the crew's quarters and find a lone orc who springs on us. Backing up, thinking he would not dare fight in close quarters near his bounty, he surprises us by pressing his attack.
Die, Imperial, die! Am I supposed to be impressed? This is the part.
As his saber falls comically off a sheep to the floor, it should be noted, there's a reason not even the sheep are safe. The pirates are actually known to dispose of the evidence, being the sheep that they're carrying illegally, and due to their high aggression, will sometimes attack them and you on sight.
You're pathetic.
Shaking our head in disbelief, and with the sheep still alive thankfully, we then enter the trapdoor to Clarabella's lower deck and find somebody's waiting for us.
To arms! To arms!
Where did you go? Come out where I can see you.
Take that!
Damn rat.
Show mercy!
With the Bosma pirate felled, the barefoot and bald Breton first mate Filch then takes a run at us.
Show mercy.
Surprisingly, he gives up the fight and decides to flee. Flitting about the cabin, and we say, Filch, there's nowhere to run. Just give up. I know all about the sheep theft, unless buggery's involved, is not worth giving your life up. However, Filch, with flight of foot, makes his way to the top deck. And as the rain pours, he bolts down the Anvil docks, and we can nary keep up. It's in the distance that we see a guard and a helpful bystander have taken off after the filthy Filch as he makes his way to the lighthouse. As we somewhat slowly lag in following behind, we see that Filch has made his way around to the lighthouse's northwestern side and realise he must have entered the cellar. The cellar being where the Dark Brotherhood betrayer Matthew Bellamont hid his bodies, and no doubt after coming across such a macabre scene, he bolts right back out and is fleeing faster than ever. However, spooked, he draws his sword and we're forced to put down the Breton.
Do your worst.
Imperial, die!
That's a real shame.
The guard, not bothering to even take his body, probably due to not wanting to write a report, leaves his corpse, and we look over the questionably intelligent Breton a final time, turning to a helpful citizen in Bosma, smiling at us like an idiot in the rain, and he questions.
Okay, guess who I am? Cainlawn or Mainlawn?
Is this really the best time to ask? We're standing over a dead pirate which you helped to apprehend. And I'm assuming you didn't even know he was a pirate when you jumped in. You know what? Never mind. Mainlawn, I guess.
Wrong. I'm the one in blue. Mainlawn is the one in brown. Take care.
Heading back to the Sea Tub Clarabella a final time, we find now with the captain's key, we can search his quarters unimpeded. And see on a desk to the north his hard jewelry box that holds a single gold amulet. However, in the eastern corner of his room next to his bed, we can open his private container with a key, finding pieces of jewellery, potion of seaside and a potion of the sea, the book The Lusty Argonian Maid, and 100 gold. The small boon for wiping out the sheep thieves and completing the hidden quest, Illegal Cargo. Well, that's it for the video, but what did you think of the dumbest pirates in Oblivion? Let me know in the comments below. As always, thanks for watching, and until next time, traveller.
Greetings to you.
Hello and welcome back. In today's video, we shall be exploring the esoteric lore surrounding Oblivion's powerful Doomstones and the hidden quest related to them, and why seemingly only we, the player, can access their elusive power, as well as the secret behind the Grey Fox's cowl, which is the key to unlocking the formidable Heavenstone's magics. To begin, let's get an overview of the stones as well as their obscure lore, before delving into unlocking their handy powers. Known as magical stones, these are powerful artifacts with little known background, scattered across the landscape in Cyrodiil. They are easy to miss, as they will not appear on your compass, and do not have map markers, though provide a powerful boon for those who would seek them out. Regarding the multiple stone varieties, there are two types of ancient magical stones in Cyrodiil, Doomstones and Runestones. Both appear as a rune-covered monolith in the centre of a circle of stones. Doomstones have glowing red runes and provide greater powers that can be used once a day. Similar to those of many birth signs, the stones may only be used at night, between 6 PM to 6 AM. Runestones have glowing green runes and provide a bound weapon and bound piece of armor when used. Interestingly, no one officially knows where these stones came from, but that hasn't stopped the learned to postulate openly, as we can sit in on university lectures, which are a series of lectures given every afternoon in the Mages Guild at the northeast end of the Arcane University Gardens. Every morning between 10 AM and 11 AM, and every afternoon between 4 PM and 6 PM, a mage scholar will give a lecture which is attended by the mage apprentices of the university. There are 5 lectures in total, all of which discuss Doomstones and Runestones for those interested enough to listen. Although the lecture for that day is randomly decided at midnight, thankfully the same lecture will never be given on 2 successive days, though in order they would impart.
First, all rune-marked ancient stones are called runestones, though there are, in fact, 2 very different classes of runestones. Doomstones have red runes and are associated with stone circles. Runestones have blue runes and appear as solitary monuments. The runes for which the stones are named glow in the dark. However, there is no evidence that the stones are magical. Various naturally occurring minerals and crystals, like glass and ebony, glow in the dark by their own light, without being magical. However, the universal belief that runestones are magical, despite all evidence, is good reason to suspect that the runestones are indeed magical. One theory is that the stones were once magical, but they have lost their magic, either through age and disuse, or because of sin or neglect. Cyrodiil's runestones are thought to belong to one of 3 time periods: the Dawn Era, the Merethic Era, or the Late First Era. Those who believe the runestones to be Dawn Era artifacts, created by the Idra or Daedra, often describe them as Lorkhan's birthing gift to mortals. Others assign the runestones to the Merethic or Early First Era, primarily on the basis of their simple, even crude design and craft. The most common practice is to place the raising of the runestones within the high First Era Cyrodiil of Empress Hestra and the Rayman Emperors. Runestones found in forts, like Sancretor, support a First Era date, though the stones could have been moved to the forts from earlier sites. The greatest objection to First Era dating is that the stones are completely unlike any other examples of First Era architecture. I believe the runestones date from the Dawn Era or Merethic Age, but they were moved to new sites by late First Era emperors. Since the runestones have lost their enchantments, however, we may never know why they were moved or what function they served at First Era sites. There are 6 commonly recognized varieties of runestones. Birthstone Doomstones bear red runes, appear with stone circles, and are associated with the classic birth signs like the Apprentice and the Atronach. Heavenly Doomstones bear red runes, appear with stone circles, and are associated with cosmic features of the heavens like the moons Joan and Jode. Hestra runestones are marked with green runes, appear as solitary monuments, and are believed to be named for the late First Era Empress Hestra. Rayman runestones are solitary monuments, marked with green runes, almost certainly named for Rayman Cyrodiil, the First Era Emperor. Sidri Ashak runestones are single-standing stones marked with green runes, thought to be named for an obscure Akaviri potentate, Sidri Ashak. Fort runestones are stones with green runes found singly or in pairs in the ruins of some subterranean First Era forts. These names offer few hints to the origin or function of the stones, though they assist scholars in identifying each type of stone on maps. Ignore the controversy of whether the runestones are enchanted. Let me suggest one possible account for the placements of the runestones. Before Tiber Septim, Cyrodiil's roads varied greatly in quality and were often impassable in bad weather and winter seasons. In the late First Era, Empress Hestra improved the roads, and the Rayman Emperors continued her policies. The last period of First Era road building was in the reign of the last strong Akaviri potentate, Sidri Ashak. Note that 3 classes of runestones are named, respectively, Hestra stones, Rayman stones, and Sidri Ashak stones. Could these runestones have served as waypoints and landmarks for military patrols of the nascent Imperial Legion? Did battle mages activate runestones on arrival, thus lighting arcane beacons within the next runestone? The Mages Guild should fund further study of the early Imperial legions, their battle mages, and their traditions of patrol and route finding. Suppose that the runestones are divine, and that the secrets of their magics are revealed only by divine revelation. Suppose that the runestones existed for whatever reason, and in whatever form, long before the coming of the Cyrodiilic emperors. Suppose, however, that the power of these stones had been hidden, but was revealed to certain holy men or prophets in the First Era. Suppose that, under the guidance of the gods, these runestones were newly consecrated to a great purpose, the founding of the Cyrodiilic Empire. Once these ancient monuments might have been powerful bulwarks of the Cyrodiilic emperors, battle mages, and priests. But imagine, as the emperors grew weak, and as the power and glory of the empire waned, and as the people fell away from their service to the gods. Imagine that the power of these runestones might have diminished, weakened, then extinguished, by the sins of the potentates. Few records survive from the dark ages of the potentates. Thus might the secrets of the runestones be lost in wickedness, vainglory, and neglect.
Although it is not clear whether the lectures are meant to provide accurate information, at the least, all of the lectures state that the various ancient stones are not enchanted, whereas you are able to activate the stones. Either the lectures are incorrect, or otherwise, we are one of few people who can receive benefits from the runestones consistent with Lecture 1. Which means we have been chosen by the divines, or perhaps as stated, our fate to aid the Emperor and quest bequeathed to us by the fallen Uriel Septum has somehow awakened the nascent stone's powers to us alone. Now, somewhat partially informed on the types of stones and their backgrounds, let's delve into the more tangible activation of said stones to explore how a Daedric artifact like the Grey Fox's Mask could technically be considered a key to unlocking said stone's powers. But first, starting with the runestones. All runestones bind a weightless weapon and a piece of armor which will disappear after the spell wears off. If the runestone can bind either a blade or blunt weapon, you will receive whichever weapon type for which your skill is greater. A tie goes to the blunt weapon. Unsurprisingly, many common plant types or single uncommon or rare plant types are found all over Cyrodiil. However, curiously, runestones are always surrounded by a patch of 4 or 5 uncommon or even rare plant types, perhaps speaking to their mystical properties. There are 3 different kinds of runestones, and each binds weapons and armor specific to its kind. Multiple instances of each are scattered throughout Cyrodiil, such as Hestra stones, which imparts summons bound gauntlets and a bound dagger, or a bound mace for 5 minutes. There are 10 Hestra stones around Cyrodiil in total. Remen stones, that will summon a bound cuirass as heavy armor, and a bound sword, being a claymore, or a bound axe for 5 minutes. The stone will determine which to use based on the higher of your blunt and blade skills, and a tie goes to blunt weapon. There are 9 Remen stones in total, and Sidri a shark, summoning a bound bow and bound helmet, both light armor, for 2 minutes. There are 5 Sidri a shark runestones in all. It should be noted, surprisingly, activating a runestone counts as casting a conjuration spell and therefore trains your conjuration skill as well. If you're trying to use the same type of runestone twice in the same day, you will receive a message that the stones rest this day. In this case, you will not receive any bound weapons or armor, and you will also receive this message if you try to use the runestone on the same day of the week as your previous use. E.g., if you last used a Remen runestone on Teodos, you will not be able to use any Remen runestone on a Teodos. You would have to then wait until after midnight and will again be able to use the stone. A major drawback of these runestones is that although the weapons are somewhat formidable, 120 seconds to leverage said powers simply isn't enough when in the middle of nowhere, not to mention the weapons despawn when holstered. The second set of stones we shall scry meaning from and mystical powers are the aptly named Birth Sign Stones. Birth Sign Stones grant one of several greater powers specific to that stone. These powers can only be obtained one at a time. However, you may switch between Birth Sign Stone powers as often as you wish, and using a Birth Sign Stone will not replace the Birth Sign and Birth Sign power chosen at the beginning of the game. A great example to start with is my personal go-to, the Tower Stone. Southwest of the Imperial City and west of Fort Homestead on the north end of the island between the two branches of the White Rose River, it's incredibly close to the Imperial City and therefore accessible once you have exited the sewers, imparting open hard lock in 15 feet on target. The Master's Hand, fortifying armorer 20 points on self for 120 seconds, but more importantly, Warden Key, which grants open hard lock in 15 foot on target. This opens 95% of locks in the game, and as the power is only usable once a day, you honestly don't come across too many hard locks in succession, and can wait out the timer if you must. Listing the other 12 stones alphabetically, there is the Apprentice Stone, found southwest of Skingrad. It grants the power Void Seed, fortifying illusion and fortify alchemy 20 points for 120 seconds. The Atronax Stone, northeast of Kavach and north of Shardrock, south of Talwyn, grants Arcane Well, which imparts spell absorption 30 points and fortify intelligence 10 points on self for 120 seconds. The Lady Stone, west of Anvil, grants Lady's Warding, fortifying willpower and endurance 20 points on self for 120 seconds. The Lord's Stone, north of Anvil, grants Ysmir's Scales, resisting frost 50%, fortifying heavy armor 10 points, and fortify light armor 10 points on self for 120 seconds. The Lover Stone, found east of Breville, south of the Silverfish River, grants Lover's Bower, imparting fortify personality and luck 20 points on self for 120 seconds. The Magic Stone, southeast of Cheydinhall, south of Haim, grants Magicka Manifold, fortifying Magicka for 50 points for 120 seconds. Ritual Stone, north of Leowin, east of Fort Redmond, grants Mara's Milk, restoring health 100 points on self, and Mara's Mercy, restoring health 150 points on target. The Serpent Stone, southeast of Leowin and east of Tidewater Cave, grants Cobra's Dance, paralyzing a victim for 5 seconds and damaging health 4 points for 20 seconds on target. The Shadow Stone, southeast of the Imperial City, east of Fort Cedrian and the Yellow Roads Bridge over the Corbollo River, grants Fingernail Moon, imparting Chameleon 15% for 120 seconds. The Steed Stone, found west of Cheydinhall, north of Nagastani, and south of the Blue Road, grants Hellride, fortifying speed and acrobatics 20 points on self for 120 seconds. The Thief Stone, south of Bruma, north of Sursen, imparts Cheetah's Nip, fortifying agility and luck 20 points on self for 120 seconds. And finally, the Warrior Stone, found southeast of Skingrad, north of Cylorn, imparts Warcry, fortifying strength 20 points, blade, blunt, and hand-to-hand 10 points on self for 120 seconds. Which brings us to, finally, the most hard to obtain due to their extraordinary powers, the Heaven Stones. Like their birth sign counterparts, they grant 1 greater power each. Unlike birth sign stones, however, the powers do not replace each other when a new stone is used. One may obtain, keep, and use daily all 7 Heaven Stones powers by visiting each of the 7 stones. However, due to their greater power, there is, of course, a catch to make sure new players do not abuse said stones' heavenly powers and become overpowered early, as Heaven Stones include a failsafe of a renown requirement, which differs by stone. The sum, not the difference as some sources state, of your fame and infamy must exceed the required number, or using the stone will result in the message, the hero's fate is known when the hero's fame has grown. This number starts at 10 renown, all the way to a hefty 100 renown requirement for the final spell. Both types of Doomstone can only be used at night between 6 PM and 6 AM. Attempting to use them outside these hours will result in the message, "No stars shine upon the Doomstone." A little known fact of the Heavenstones is the powers acquired from Doomstones also add the relevant spell effects to the list of effects your character knows, which therefore can be used when creating custom spells or custom enchanted items. The Jones Stone, found north of Skingrad, east of the Shrine of Sanguine, requires renown level 10 and grants Jones's shadow reading. The hero's fate is etched into Jones's face, which imparts invisibility and Fortify Sneak 30 points, Fortify Acrobatics 30 points, Fortify Athletics 30 points for 120 seconds on self. The Aetherius Stone, northwest of Skingrad and south of Bleak Flats Cave, requires 20 renown. When activated, reads, "The stars in their courses mark the hero's doom upon Aetherius." Imparts Gates of Aetherius, Fortifying Magicka 50 points, Resist Magic 20% on self for 120 seconds. The Jode Stone, found east of Anvil, southeast of Troll Candle Camp, once activated, reads, "On Jode's face, the hero's doom is traced," requiring 30 renown, where imparted Jode's blood, Fortifying Health 40 points, Fortify Blade 20 points, Fortify Blunt 20 points, and Fortify Hand to Hand 20 points for 120 seconds. The Scythian Stone, found north of Kavach in the center of the triangle formed by Fort Lincoln, Mongrel's Tooth Cave, and Shattered Mine on the map, reads when unlocked, "The hero's doom is figured in the Scythian mystery," requiring 40 renown. We then granted Scythian's Web, fortifying Illusion, Marksman, Mercantile, Security, and Speechcraft 20 points for 120 seconds. The Magnus Stone is found northeast of Leowen, east of Atatar and Haunted Mine. When unlocked, it reads, "The children of Magnus chart the hero's doom in their paths." Requiring 50 renown, were granted Skein of Magnus, fortifying Illusion, fortifying Alteration, Alchemy, Conjuration, Destruction, and Restoration 15 points for 120 seconds. The Shazar Stone, found northwest of Leowen and north of Telepi, when unlocked reads, "The shade of Shazar shrouds the hero's doom." Requiring 60 renown points, were granted the Shield of Shazar, reflecting spells at 10%, and fortifying Block, Heavy Armor, Light Armor, and Fortify Armor at 20 points for 120 seconds. The Dragonstone, north of Chadenhall, northeast of Lake Arius, when unlocked reads, "The dragon dreams, but the hero gleams in his eye." Unlocked by 70 renown, where imparted the Dragon Dream, fortifying Magicka 50 points, fortifying Health 40 points, and fortifying Fatigue 100 points on self for 120 seconds. And finally, there is a hidden stone, as promised, that cannot be unlocked, called the Known Stone. This stone does not exist in-game, but its greater power can be found in the construction set, and when unlocked would have read, "The heavens wheel around Nirn, and Nirn's hero." Requiring a hefty 100 renown, we would then be imparted Nirn's breath, detecting life 100 foot on self, fortify fatigue 200 points, and fortify health 100 points on self for 120 seconds. So finally, to end the video, what is the hidden power of the Grey Fox's cowl that aids in unlocking the Heavenstone's formidable powers early? Well, Gaining a total of 100 renown through fame and infamy alike would take tens of hours of questing, as most quests only impart 1 fame or infamy per quest, going towards your total score. However, one of the hidden abilities of the Grey Fox's Cowl, which is granted to the player once they simply complete the Thieves Guild questline, is you instantly become infamous, as you'll find all the guards chase you down relentlessly.
You're wanted dead or alive, Grey Fox. This will be easier if you're dead. Then pay with your blood!
Ostensibly, this doesn't seem like a handy power at all, bar the detect life to see them coming. However, if one was to check their infamy score whilst wearing the mask, they'd soon learn that it's set to 100 by using this ancient Daedric artifact, making what seems to be a great curse being hunted constantly into a valuable key, unlocking the powers of ancient gods who are surprisingly indifferent as to how a mortal became renowned, caring just that they're known enough by their kin to be deemed worthy of their secret Heavenstone's powers. That's it for the video. Thank you so much for watching, and for the unofficial wiki for containing the bulk of this information. If you enjoyed this style of video that's more relaxed and information heavy, let me know in the comments below. But as always, thanks for watching, and until next time, traveller. Necromancy has been all but banned in Cyrodiil, thanks to the controversial archmage Hannibal Traven. Although ostensibly a net positive for the Mages Guild, this edict has caused a large schism amongst its members, a rift we find ourselves firmly in the middle of during the Mages Guild questline. However, there is one quest that I dare say is the perfect precursor to show the deleterious effects of necromancy on the Order. That is a must-play, preferably pre-Mages Guild, titled The Lich of Lost Boy Cavern. It's one of 11 hidden quests in Oblivion that does not appear in your journal, and therefore most players have probably missed. It follows the story of an exiled mage trying to save his friend from himself, and the cruel reward for his good deed, plus how a Bethesda bug in the quest makes it impossible to complete for some, though this may have inadvertently added to the sorrowful story. To begin the quest, we find ourselves far east of Breville. Nestled in a tiny ravine is the entrance to Lost Boy Cavern. Out front of the door to the cave, curiously, we find a weathered journal resting atop a rock that begins our unmarked quest, reading, "Long have I sought to purge the evils haunting Erendur, even when his necromantic studies resulted in our mutual expulsion from the Guild of Mages. I persisted in guiding him towards good with a gentle hand. Alas, in our exile, my old friend has mired himself in the foul practice, and in shocking discovery, I learned he had become a miserly disciple of the Worm King, a cunning wraith, a lich. Frail memory strengthened by dogmatic resolve, the archmages turned me away when I came to them with my discovery. My pleas for a detachment of battle mages ignored. Only my long-past expulsion remembered. And thus, the grave duty falls only to me. I must bear the burden of purging the lich that was once a friend. I wander now into the foreboding maw of these catacombs, known as the Lost Boy Caverns, far from the climes of common elves and men. With pure spirit and rites of cleansing, I hope to strike down the fearsome lich and set free the soul of Erendur. But I leave this testament behind, lest I may never return from these depths, as a warning to those who may follow my path. Faithful, even in exile, Vangaril." What a ghastly story. This poor Vangaril is a true friend to attempt to end his old friend Erendur's further fall as a lich under the employ of Manimarco no less. What a terrible fate the Mages Guild has left their former colleagues to grapple with. Stealing our resolve, we attempt to follow the breadcrumbs Vangaril has left and cautiously enter the cave. Once inside, we soon see the body of a corpse staked by 2 spears on the ground. Hoping this isn't Vangaril, we then see nearby another corpse strung up on a wall in a mock display, as necromancers like to do as a warning to those trespassing on their foul dens. Stalking our way into the multi-level cave network, we soon discover the fell practitioners of the forbidden arts infest the area along with their undead counterparts.
I've fought mudcrabs more fearsome than you. That's the best you can do.
However, there is no sign of this Vangaril. It should quickly be noted, as we plumb the cave network, Lost Boy Caverns boasts 4 zones in total, being Lost Boy Cavern, Canyon, Yawning Halls, and Hidden Bastion. The second installment of the notes is a crumpled piece of paper found in Lost Boy's Yawning Halls near an overturned chair. This missive is somewhat incoherent and bodes poorly for poor Vangaril. Reading: "Each day this cave foils me. I could swear I'm near the surface when I awake, shaking, cold in this dank inner keep. Here I must keep my notes out of the way. 3 steps forth, 5 steps right, 6 steps up, and 7 for woe. 8 steps make the children cry. 9 steps pop Gajit's eyes. 10 steps mark the Worm King's wrath. 11 steps through the gates of scorched oblivion. Worm of death, take Vangaril." Making haste to find the missing mage, we instead locate the 3rd note, which is another crumpled piece of paper near an overturned chair, this time in Lost Boy Canyon. This note is apparently a taunt written by his former friend Erendur, promising to consume Vangaril from within. "Rot, decay, and the worms. Pitiful scrabbling of this mortal shell shall soon be quieted. Vangaril, fool, struggle no more. When you read these words, know that your graying skin, your failing breath, know that they are your own doing, your own foil and folly. Soon you will be no more, and Lich Erendur will consume you from within. Resign unto your fate. Join us." Knowing that the Lich Erendur hunted his former friend, we soon find chronologically a folded page is next, and 2 identical copies of this paper can be found in Lost Boy's Hidden Bastion, one in the easternmost room and one in the westernmost. After fighting through a slew of the undead and locating a macabre display of death, skulls and misery, we then find at the end of the room a chest containing some items, a key, and the note. This paper states that Vangaril successfully completed the rites to free Erendur's soul. "This day, I have struck down the former shade of my friend and ally. With a heavy heart, as the Lich wailed and perished, I performed the rites to extract Erendur's soul from undeath and destroy the Lich utterly. No dusty text had prepared me
for the bizarre events that occurred, but I am confident that I have freed the soul of Erendur. I feel compelled to investigate this cavern. Perhaps some dark relics here can be used for research to better combat necromancers in the future. I will explore and perhaps emerge with trophies enough to prove my worth to the guild. Happy to see the former mage has vanquished the Lich, we continue to explore the caverns for any sign of Bangaril. Instead, inside the stone remnants of the subterranean fort, we find a disturbing workroom of a necromancer in the hidden bastion. A desk sits with twisted trappings of their kin, including corpse parts, a bloody blade, and soul gems. We oddly then find Vangaril's 3 attempts to write his final message to his Mages Guild superiors. The first, an open letter to the Guild of Mages, is a formal and respectful letter. This letter is strangely not complete, and apparently crumpled and abandoned by Vangaril. An open letter to the Guild of Mages. Respected Archmages, if this letter makes it to your hands, it is either through my miraculous escape from Lost Boy Cavern, or the noble hands of an intrepid explorer who did not share my gruesome fate. The dire task I undertook alone, when your hands denied me aid, ended in peril. Despite my studies, I failed the casting to banish the Lich befouling the spirit of my dear friend, Erendur, and an evil took root within me. Surely your noble countenance will not be furrowed to hear. The next attempt we find is far more aggressive in tone, reading, "A letter for the once great Mage's Council. The words you read now are those of a man sentenced to the icy grip of undeath, so doomed by your hand. Though thy folly was perhaps only to follow protocol, may my fate haunt your dreams. I vigorously trained myself as a spell sword to purge the Lich that had dominated the soul of my once noble friend, my Erendur. But my pointless expulsion from your misguided coven barred me from the appropriate training. The blame falls upon your brow for my errors in banishing the Lich. The blame falls to you for its infestation of my mind. May the Worm King himself usurp you, piteous hounds of..." Understanding Vangaril's frustration that he was left to his own devices and to contend with his former friend and his grief after felling him, we finally realized the tragic extent of the toll exercising the Lich had on Vangaril, as it's titled, "An Open Threat to the Guild of Mages. Your days are at an end. Your blind bureaucracy finished. Your maggot-filled hearts will rot in the eaves of my inner sanctum. Your flesh, nothing more than tattered mort meat. Your paltry souls, forfeit. I will consume you, each one. The fell might of Lich Erendur Vangaril will be your end. De Draka Monimako De Droth Kavach Manimako." The revelation of Vangaril's tragic fate falls heavily upon us, as evidently the Lich was not truly banished, but instead managed to incorporate the souls of both Erendur and Vangaril. The final note making references to both Kavach and Manimako, as he threatens to kill every member of the Mages Guild. Although we do not owe this apathetic Mages Guild our allegiance, we know Vangaril would want us to put a stop to whatever he and Erendur have jointly become, and thus begin our search for this new, unholy union of the Lich known as Erendur Vangaril. Around the corner,
We soon find a large double door that can be opened with the key we obtained from the chest in the western hall. Through the gap, we see a ghostly wraith ominously stalking above candlelit stairs, surreptitiously snuffing our torch. We equip our bow, loosing a single arrow at the ethereal fiend, only to see it does no damage. Confused, we ascend the stairs, seeing a throne in which a skeleton sits atop, and puzzlingly, we find wandering harmlessly nearby is the ethereal remains of Erendur/Vangaril as a Lich. However, in their current state, they're unable to extract their promised revenge on the Mages Guild, or Tamriel for that matter. Instead, somewhat fittingly and sadly doomed to wander the halls as one, forever. Although, as mentioned, it's a fitting end, this is actually a Bethesda bug that A, players wouldn't originally know was a bug because there are no journal entries to the quest as it's hidden, and B, this bug cannot be fixed without the unofficial patch. So, what gives? Well, unlike most quests, Lost Boy Caverns is level locked and doesn't advise you of this at all, meaning if you're below the threshold of level 23, you will be able to explore the entire cavern and notes therein, but you'll be unable to fight the final boss, and you'll find an ethereal being instead, but are unable to interact with it in any meaningful way. And, perhaps worse, if you returned later at level 23, the ghostly Lich would not become material. So, in a way, this conclusion, filled with despair for Vangaril's good deeds being repaid by him forced to be a ghost wandering the halls with his friend forever, is somewhat fitting, and it's due to the apathy of the Mages Guild, so you can make a story out of what is actually a bug. But that doesn't feel fair to the player, so let's explore the true ending. If instead we'd originally entered the cavern at level 23, or you can actually return to the cavern at level 23 if you have the unofficial patch installed which fixes said bug. We would then find a very material and wrathful Erendur Vangaril waiting by his old throne. Loosing a surprise arrow to take the Lich unawares, a war of attrition then begins. Post felling the foul fiend, we find on his remains a Daedric mace of holy light, which can turn the undead, perhaps an artifact Vangaril carried in his confrontation against his old friend. We also find the very potent Greater Staff of Silence, expertly crafted to make the most powerful of mages impotent and helpless mid-fight. Turning to see the skeletal remains limp on his old throne, we find another copy of the folded note atop a chest that we'd read earlier. The chest itself had higher gear, however I made the mistake of searching it earlier, so it's advised to tackle the cavern when you're a higher level. Having cleansed the cavern, we have but one stop left. Departing for the Imperial City, we enter the Arcane University, forcing our way into the Archmage Traven's private quarters. Though the sleeping mage stirs, he rebukes.
I'm warning you. Get out, or I'll call the guards.
Unable to even apprise the Archmage who refuses to listen, our tale, it seems, would fall on deaf ears just like Vangaril's did. However, we can finally garner the dismissive mage's attention by donning the robe of his enemy in a mocking fashion.
Are you out of your mind? Take that robe off at once.
Hoping this somewhat raises the alarm, we move to exit the tower. Is death, hoping some good came of Vangaril's end, and proving, as they say, apathy is death. If you enjoyed this video, please consider subscribing to stay up to date with future videos like this one. We also have a new members section on the channel with great rewards like seeing videos early. As always, thanks so much for watching, and until next time, Traveller.